Good morning, everybody. It is Sunday, November the 13th, 2022. And this morning we are at Lake Fausse Pointe State Park, which is on the edge of the Atchafalaya Basin in south central Louisiana. It's a beautiful morning, a little chilly actually. It's going to be in the 40s today. But Lake Fausse Pointe is a very nice place if you want to come spend a night in a cabin. Actually, I'll turn so you can see. There's several of these out here. There's also RV and tent camping as well. And then also there's some primitive camping spots that I'm gonna show a little later. But today we're gonna be focusing on the trails. There's 3 of them that we're gonna be hiking today. And the combination of the 3 is gonna put us a little under 6 miles for the day. I'm gonna point out those primitive campsites and a few other things along the way. So Jay and I are ready to get started and show you Lake Fausse Pointe. All right, as soon as you come off that bridge, you're gonna come up to this trailhead here. You can see the 3 trails that we're gonna be hiking today. We're gonna start on Trail A, and then we'll progress over to B and C. Trail A is also known as the Armadillo Ridge Trail. And as you can see here, it's just a little under 1 mile. So let's check it out. Well, that was Trail A. You can see the entrance back in. This is where we just came out of. And you'll see that there's a red and blue sign. That's going to be trails B and C. And so this will take you back where we enter. It's just a short distance from here, back over to the bridge and the parking lot. But what we're going to do is we're going to continue on this way, which is going to run us into Trail B. And you'll see this sign indicating Trail C. That's further along, but we're now getting on to Trail B. Just a short distance down from the beginning of Trail B, you'll see the intersection here. We're gonna end up going back down here and taking a right, and this actual boardwalk is the end of Trail B. We're probably gonna miss part of this section because we're extending our walk, but I wanna show you here, this is an actual scenic overlook, and I do not believe that you're gonna be disappointed. I will show you what it looks like. Now keep in mind, I've talked about this in my last couple of videos. It's been very dry. We're starting to get a little bit of rain now, especially from this cold front that came through the other day. So there's probably a little bit more water out here, but nevertheless, you can see in the background, and I'm going to go ahead and just try to take you from right here. That's Lake Fausse Pointe, and it pretty much runs north and south. We're more on the northern edge of it, and it goes straight back in that direction there. As you saw, I took a few pictures over at that scenic overlook. Unfortunately, some of them were a little dirty, probably even possibly need to be replaced, but it shows you just some of the different habitat you might be able to see out here along with the vegetation. Really cool stuff. You know, being out here is unique because this is the only state park that's located in the Atchafalaya Basin. And so you get a first-hand view of some of the habitat depending upon the time of the year you come out. Right now, of course, it's definitely chilly, so you're not going to see the alligators, you know, in the water or some of the other things that you normally would find, but you'll probably be able to find several different types of birds flying around here. They normally come down here generally December, January. So depending upon when you decide to pick out your time that you want to come hike out here, you definitely should be able to see a lot of unique wildlife. One thing I wanted to point out, as you saw at the beginning of the video, we crossed the bridge just to enter the park, and it's basically on an island. And there's a couple of channels, such as the one that's to our right now. I'm taking a few photos and videos of. If you go back and learn the history of this place, back in the early part of the 20th century, there were several canals that were created by the oil and gas industry so they could transport their product. And a little bit later on, I believe we're going to start seeing a couple of spots that's slightly elevated, which it's not natural elevation. It was the sediment that was dug up to create those canals. So you're going to see these different channels on either side of you when you're walking on the trail in certain sections. And that's basically how it was set up. So one thing I wanted to point out earlier too, it really goes without saying, but great place to come out and fish. There's a couple of boat landings out here, and there's people out here fishing. The ones that are diehard, doesn't matter what the temperature is, they're coming out. So just a little something to learn about this particular park. And we're going to continue now on the Trail B. All right, we've come all the way around back towards where we came in. You can see the boardwalk right down there. What we're going to do now is we're going to take this side trail, and this is going to take us over to Trail C. Here's one of the backpacking sites. This is backpacking site 1. And you can see here, fire ring, little picnic table, nice overview. And looks like you can get a couple of tents out here. There's another side trail over there, so there's more camping back here. So there's about 7 of them in this park. So if you don't want to stay up towards the front end of the park, well, the RVs and cabins are, this would definitely make an awesome choice instead. These trails are very well marked. Right after that last junction that I showed between the split with backpacking site 2 and this Trail C, there was another split, and it was to the right where you could go back to the backpacking site number 2 campsite, and they had the arrow to the left, which is in orange. So just keep in mind that you'll have to keep your head up when you get along the beginning of Trail C, because that's where you're going to have a lot more junctions. And again, if you get a little confused, just follow those arrows, because if you go the other way, it's just going to take you to a backpacking site. Worst case scenario is if you do end up on one of those, they're not very long. It's very short, so you'll be able to turn around very quickly. I wanted to just come show you these campsites here. Pretty consistent to what we saw earlier. Fire ring, benches. So, and this is number 4, so there's 7 of them. So I would say it looks like they're pretty consistent. I think it's just going to be your point of preference where you want to stop along trail to camp out. But this is very impressive so far with the backpacking sites. I mean, each one of them's just a very short distance from the trail. The one I showed earlier with backpacking site number 3, that was a little bit further walk, but all in all, none of them are probably more than 1/8 of a mile. So really, I think, you know, it's just a matter of just coming out one day, getting your spot when you check into the park. But there's so many of them out here, and Of course, right now we're in mid-November and it's 45 degrees, so I'm sure there's more people that come out in the springtime, but I highly recommend that even though it's a short hike, you could still come out for a couple of miles and hike this, spend the night, and then finish up the next day. As you saw in one of those photos a little while ago about the cottonmouth snakes, this goes to show why it's best to come out here in the colder months. I've been taking a couple of more pictures along the way. The waterways actually are a little dried up, but that's why you really are better off coming, around late October, early November, once the temperature starts to drop down a little bit, because it's just not worth it to try to do this in the summertime based upon what I showed a little while ago. But we're about halfway through Trail C, and we're just gonna keep on going to the end of this trail. Something else I wanted to point out here, canoe paddle site, which is just a short distance down overlooking the lake. So you want to come out and do this sort of thing, this is your perfect place to come hang out. Right after you cross that boardwalk, you can see right here, there's a junction, and it takes you back to the conference center. That's the area where we started this trail. You can see though that it's marked trail often wet. Now, this time of the year right now, with the way things have been in the fall of 22, we haven't got much precipitation. So I'm sure you're more than fine to go this way, but we're going to continue on in this direction here because we know that's going to normally stay dry. And this is actually a longer way to get back to the car, which is what Jay and I are trying to accomplish today. Okay, after that short junction, we come out to the end of Trail C, it looks like. 3.3 miles. But we're going to be, looks like it's going to take us along this little road back to the car, but you can see how pretty it is out here. Some really nice cabins all on the water. So I'm going to show you some of that on the way back to the car. Shortly after you pass those cabins, you'll come down this way and you'll see the signs. Trail C does pop back off the road. And so that's going to probably go on for about another 3/4 of a mile maybe. And that will take us back to the car. Well, Trail C just popped us back out on the road, so we're not far from our cars now, but now that I'm getting close to the end, I'll just go ahead and give you now my thoughts on this. This was actually the first time that I've come out here and walked this entire trail, and kind of ashamed myself for not coming out here sooner because I live in Lafayette and it's only about 45 minutes or so away, but it definitely lived up to much beyond my expectations, because a lot of you out there are probably thinking, do I really want to go out there and hike? I mean, it's in the basin, it's got to be swampy and muddy and everything. And I'm sure there are a few sections that are. Just for example, that junction I showed you earlier where if you turn left, it showed it, it's normally a wet area. But with the ridges that are along the banks of the canals, and then you have all those primitive campsites, I tell you what, this is a great place to come out, especially if you don't want to hike for a long distance, but you'd like to get that full backpacking experience of getting on a nature trail, setting up your tent, spending the night, and getting back on trail the next day. I would highly recommend you come out here. And if you're not looking to backpack, of course, there are, like you saw, 3 different trails. So you can cut your distance down and just hike one of them or 2 of them or all 3 of them. But this is definitely a nice place for the family to come out, and especially if you have people with different interests, such as people that want to go fishing. They could take their boats out, or as I showed some of those cabins earlier, they have docks right over the water. You can just cast your line right from your cabin. And there are other things for the smaller kids. When you come into the park, there's playgrounds and things like that. So if you want to come check out the Atchafalaya Basin and get a taste of it and be able to do some hiking, I highly recommend you come out here. So thanks for watching.